So this is going to be a quick tutorial on how to use your watercolors, Crayola watercolors or whatever watercolor that you get. There's different brands. So this is going to be the palette that I'm using. You can just get 8-color palette, and they have other sizes too, but the 8-color palette is perfectly fine. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to use these. When you use this, you barely need a little bit of water. So you just get a little cup of water like this and your palette. You are not going to mix the colors inside your palette. So you need to probably get 1 or 2 little brushes as well, different sizes. The one that comes with the packet isn't really a good brush, so you might want to go ahead and just invest in 1 or 2 little brushes that are not that expensive because you are just learning. So you're going to get a small little cup of water. You do not need much water at all. And you're going to have your palette. And I'm going to draw this design, which is going to be a basketball that is sitting on the ground. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a very difficult design. I'm just trying to show you how to use watercolor. So what you're going to do, you're going to draw with your pencil first. Okay, and then so to draw a basketball, I'm using a little template for a circle. Okay, and I'm going to trace the circle, so you can use a cup or if you have a circle stencil. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a curved line, that, and then another curved line going this way. Okay, and then up and out. And then this one is going like that. Okay, and then on the ground, I'm going to do a little oval shape just to show the shadow of the basketball sitting on the ground. Alright, so when you color with your watercolor, you're going to get your brush and you're going to do what's called a light wash. So you're going to touch your water, and you can actually, you don't want to use a lot of water, so you're going to touch your blue, and I'm going to dip back in the water just a little bit because you want a light wash. And I'm just going to go in the background around the basketball. And I'm not going to get more paint. I'm just going to use a little bit. Okay? And if you have too much, what you can do also is you get a napkin and you can dab your napkin and get some of the excess off. Okay? So I'm just going to do a light wash for the background. Okay, then I'm going to rinse my brush and I will dab it to get the extra paint off. I'm going to touch the water again, so you barely need any water. And what I'm going to do now, in order to mix colors, I'm going to get some yellow. Okay, and I'm going to go inside the whole basketball. And I'm just going to do a light wash of the yellow. Okay, and then make sure you try not to touch the blue because then it'll mix. I'm going to touch my water again. You rinse it if you have to. Then I'm going to go into my orange. And I'm going to leave, you see how there's a highlight right here? I'm going to leave a circle and then go around the whole basketball. But I'm going to leave a circle where I'm not going to touch orange. So now I've rinsed my brush, going into the orange, and I don't get no more paint. I wait till I run out. Okay. Now with watercolor paint, it's very light and very delicate. So what happens is you have to you make 2 layers to make it darker. So what happens is in between each step, you usually have to let it dry. So you can like wait a couple minutes, and it usually dries pretty fast. And then once it dries, you're going to do a second coat. And the second coat is going to get it to where it's darker. So what happens now is I'm going to touch my blue again. I'm going to touch a little bit of water. Your water should not get real dirty because you're not rinsing a lot in your water. So if it does get dirty, go get some new water. But you just touch your water again. And then I'm going to go back in my blue. And I'm going to touch my blue. So you see my colors, I'm not mixing in my colors. I'm going to touch a little bit of blue. And then I'm going to dab while the paper is still wet. And I'm just going to dab in little areas to show lights and darks just around your basketball. Okay? And be very gentle. just to make some lights and darks. And this is how watercolor is supposed to look. So I want you to play with watercolor to get used to it. And as you see, the second coat gets darker. So I didn't do a second coat back here because it's light blue, but the second coat here is dark blue. And even if you do a third coat, it'll get darker and darker for each coat that you do. But you need to make sure it dries in between each coat. Okay, now I'm going to rinse my brush again, and I'm going to go into my orange and do another coat. So you see here, I am not mixing on the palette, I'm mixing on the paper. I'm going to do a second coat of orange, and you should wait for it to dry. But for the sake of time, I'm not doing a second coat while it dries. I'm just doing it where it's almost dry. But you see where I'm touching the paper and it gets darker? Alright, so that's how watercolor works. So I want you to get your watercolor palette, and I want you to play with it. Try to do 2 coats, but make sure it dries in between each coat. I'm going to touch my brown. I'm going to make a shadow here. But I'm also going to go inside the basketball, because at the bottom part of the basketball it's going to be dark. And then here's the highlight. So you'll do a second coat, do a little bit of brown down here. And then I'm going to touch my orange again. And that is how you color with watercolor. So have fun learning. You can also, if you make a mistake, sometimes you can pick up by getting another paintbrush that is not dirty, and then you can literally pick up paint. If you messed up a little bit, you could slide it over to where you want it. Get a skinny brush where there's like little small areas. Okay? And make sure you cover all your paper with paint. And mix on the paper and not the palette. Okay? So there you go. That's how you play with watercolor. Hopefully you have fun with this little quick tutorial. Play with it, learn, make mistakes, have fun. Make sure you do not mix inside the palette.